Greetings, Culturians, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we have to talk about, well, this weekend's coming failure. That's right, Supergirl is going to be released into theaters on Thursday for previews and Friday into the general weekend. And I'm going to tell you that whether it's an international number you're looking for or a North American number, they'll both be disappointing. In fact, global earnings for this film are going to be catastrophically low. And as we look forward into the projections, a $39 million opening in just the North American market is a catastrophe that almost can't be prevented at this point. Now, there are some people reacting rather strongly because other content creators in the space are, well, telling it like it is. And you're seeing some other creators throw absolute temper tantrums, calling them out, calling them names, and doing everything but actually explaining why Supergirl will do well at a time when, well, most films just don't have the kind of ability to do well. So here we go. Now, before we get started, just a real quick reminder, I am trying to get to 50K. I can do that with your kind help if you click on the subscribe button. If you are already subscribed, thank goodness, and I appreciate it, but hit the thumbs up button as well. And then there's a little bell icon down there. If you click on it, it'll tell you what your subscription notifications look like. Be sure to turn on all notifications because right now, YouTube has basically defaulted everybody to selected, preferred, something weird, whatever the language is there. Just do me that small favor. It'll help me and all your favorite creators out. Also, if you want to guarantee to see me in your feed or any of your other favorite creators, all you have to do is actually follow this video up as you watch it all the way to the end and with another video from my channel that maybe you missed last week or earlier this week. That will help you stay with me in my feed all the time. And I'll appreciate that. Let's jump into the story from our friend Marvin Montanaro over at That Park Place. Polymarket traders are overwhelmingly expecting a weak Supergirl box office. Well, this is from June 18th, so going into the weekend, we already knew something was rotten in the state of Denmark, or whatever the saying is, I don't know. But we do know that this is not very good. It's a warning sign, and it's one of many as they continue to pile up, according to Marvin. The industry tracking has already suggested that the DC Studios' next theatrical release could open anywhere from the mid-40 range to the mid-50 range, which would put it well behind what will be first place next weekend, Toy Story 5. That's right. Toy Story 5 isn't going anywhere anytime soon, and Supergirl gets a lot of competition in an audience that it can, well, not afford to lose to anything else that comes out the following weekends, and it will absolutely lose the audience to those things. Now, according to Polymarket's opening weekend market, Supergirl's opening is 62% looking at below 52 million. Well, yeah, there's only 8% betting that it's going to open over 70, which it won't. And the prediction markets are hardly a perfect science, but it's a fascinating look at where people are willing to actually put money behind their beliefs. It's also called the wisdom of crowds. Now, we've talked about this on more than one occasion. It's a decent chance that the populace in general is right. They always seem to be right about elections. They always seem to be right about pop culture events. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm with them on this one. This is going to be one of those times that they're right. This film should be right around 40 million in domestic earnings, and it's going to be worse off than maybe Mandalorian and Grogu. And if that's the case, it's in big trouble indeed. But it doesn't stop there, because on June 20th, over on That Park Place once again, we got another story. You see, Supergirl box office projections continue sliding as 39 million enters into the conversation, something that we had predicted would happen last week, in fact did. Now, as it did, it also kind of dragged down some other numbers that, well, kind of are concerning, like the IMAX viewings. It's quite possible that Toy Story 5 replaces several IMAX showings where Supergirl was going to live. And on date night in many of the major metropolitan areas, you aren't seeing as many theaters dedicated to Supergirl as maybe they expected. Now, less than a week before the film arrives in theaters, or right now it's well less than a week because we're going to be seeing it in Thursday previews. I'll be reviewing it for you Friday. But it's suggesting that Warner Brothers could face an even worse opening, with $39 million being on a realistic downside scenario. For a film carrying the Supergirl name and serving as DC Studios' biggest theatrical release of the year, I think it's the only one, it's not the kind of conversation executives want to have. No, they don't. This is absolutely the worst case scenario for DC. Tracking hasn't gone up. It's only moved in one direction. The most concerning part is that it isn't necessarily that figure, but the trend behind it. It's constantly been sliding downward, and I've been covering it on my channel across the course of multiple videos, as you can see right up there as an example of one of them. And look, there is a lot of stuff that has continued to slide, including, as I said before, screen interest. In comparison to the Marvels, are not something positive. You see, that's a troubling thing for Warner Brothers. Marvel Studios' biggest failure to date, I believe, was the Marvels, if you don't count Disney minus as a whole. And the film opened to approximately $47 million domestically and quickly became one of the most infamous box office disappointments in modern superhero movie history. That also is telling, because if Supergirl starts even below $50 million, then they are headed for an absolute disaster, with a total likely outcome domestically of only $150 million in North America, leaving the rest of the international markets with a very heavy load to carry indeed. And look, these superhero films aren't doing that anymore. They're not carrying the load. They're not carrying the studios forward. They aren't doing any heavy lifting whatsoever. If anything, they're consistently losing money, and studios can't afford that. Supergirl opening in fewer theaters than Superman, Fantastic Four, and Thunderbolts is another concern, and that concern continues to mount. According to Marvin on the 19th, Warner Brothers and DC are sending out a curious signal ahead of Supergirl's theatrical debut. Well, actually, they sent out several curious signals, including the expiry of the embargo window, in order to get some kind of positive bot spin out into social media. So they are only going to have 3,600 theaters across North America, including those IMAX screens, which will lose showings to more popular films. The figure is significantly lower than the opening theater counts for last summer's major superhero release, which was Superman in 4,135 theaters, and The Fantastic Four in 4,125 theaters, which also was a catastrophic failure, along with Thunderbolts, which was even worse off. Supergirl is going to sit in fewer theaters, making less money. That's just the bottom line. This presents a tough marketplace for Supergirl. Part of the explanation may simply be competition, which is fierce at this point in the year, but it's not like they didn't know that. They knew Toy Story would be there. They knew there'd be several other films to follow that would be actually dedicated competition. And not only that, Jackass, the final one, releases at the same time in the same window, which is also going to hit Supergirl pretty hard. Family films are going to dominate multiplexes. That's Toy Story 5, maybe a few others. And there's going to be little incentive for exhibitors to release proven performers, at least as far as the screens go. Why would they pull things that make money to put something in that likely won't? And again, when you take a look at a lot of the experiences in the multiplex areas in the major metros, you don't see a lot of pre-sale tickets for Supergirl, and that's another point of concern. In fact, tracking remains uncomfortably close to historic superhero flops, as I mentioned before. Somewhere in the range of 45 to 55, as low as 39, putting it right there with The Flash, the Marvels, and again, some of those cautionary tales from the last couple of years. I have a feeling this thing may be doomed. In fact, I think I've said so on multiple occasions. And so far, well, we don't have anything from the tomato meter at the moment because, well, we don't have any reviews that are allowed to be demonstrated in public until we get closer to this film's release. When it enters the theaters on June 26th, what's it going to be? Well, I don't think it's going to be good. And with that, I think we can sum up the performance of Supergirl in a very limited number of words. Low expectations. We think this is going to do very poorly indeed. Who was the film made for and why? And is this going to serve as a great lead-in to Superman Man of Tomorrow? I doubt it. In fact, I think the only moments of cameo appearance by Lobo and Superman's character are going to be about it. Everything else is going to leave people lacking. And a lot of people said there's just not enough Lobo in here to satisfy them. They've also cut the film back considerably after its 10th cut, its 10th screened cut in pre-screenings, to a much shorter time frame, which means there'll be less time on screen, which might work in their favor for getting theaters turned over, but won't work in their favor as far as the overall financial performance. Anyway, your thoughts are as good as mine. Let me know what they are down in the comments section below. And as always, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya. Just probably watching something better than Supergirl, despite my review coming out on Friday.